in chapter 13 this evening. We've probably spent a dozen weeks or so. This is almost a chapter a week. I think we may have done a couple last time, but we've come to a difficult portion of the book to teach, because there's an awful lot of dividing of the land. And so what I'm going to do, until we get into chapters with more content, what I'll do is I'm just going to survey probably 4 chapters tonight and try to hit as many highlights as I can. So it's a challenging section to teach. So bear with me. We'll try to make it as best I can, as interesting as I can, which is not easy to do all the time. So we'll do that, and then we'll have a few weeks off from Joshua, and then back in January we'll continue. Okay, so chapter 13. Now we've come to the dividing of the land and amongst the tribes, and so the battles, the conquering has occurred where they've conquered the land, but there's still land to possess. It's a little bit different. So chapter 13, verse 1 says, "Now Joshua was old and stricken in years, and the Lord said unto him, Thou art old and stricken in years, and there remaineth yet very much land to be possessed." How would you like that? Hey, you're old and you're stricken in years. You know? That would be tough, right? I just turned 55 and I said, how could this have happened to me? You know, what happened? So, where did the time go? But Joshua is, he's in his 80s at this point, but the Lord reminds us there's very much land to be possessed. So there was a difference between coming in and conquering that land, defeating enemies, and actually possessing the land, moving into it, living there, and driving out any remnant of people that were there. There were still remnants of people in some of the cities. And then, again, we try to, as much as possible, spiritualize things as to be practical. Old Testament, physical is oftentimes New Testament, spiritual, devotional application. But spiritually speaking, we have conquered sin through Christ. Christ has conquered, right? We are more than conquerors, right? So we've conquered sin through Christ and his forgiveness. Yet at the same time, we still have so many promises to possess the land, right? We have to still go get the blessings, so to speak. So the lazy Christian who has conquered sin through Christ, the lazy Christian who doesn't do anything, just hasn't really possessed any land, hasn't gone after the prize, hasn't been rewarded, and so because we are soldiers of Christ, we are to endure hardness as a good soldier. We've got to go possess the land. And honestly, I really believe this, because I'm coming from I'm just a dummy. I am a small town dummy. And the ground is level at the foot of the cross. And you go get what you can get. When you get saved, I just feel like it's available for anybody. I know we're all equipped differently and gifted differently and all that, but man, people can do great things for Christ if they desire to do that, if they go after it. Say, I'm going to go conquer me some land, I don't think God's going to sit back and say, no, you can't. Of course you can. Okay. So a lot of land to possess for the children of Israel, and for Christians, man, it just never stops the blessings that we can inherit and the rewards that we can have for heaven. It just doesn't ever stop. As long as we live, we get to fight and possess land that God has for us, to, spiritual blessings that are out there for everybody to get. Now, so they're going to divide the land. So we skip over to verse 7, and he says, "Now therefore divide this land for an inheritance unto the 9 tribes and the half tribe of Manasseh," because Reuben, Gad, and the other half of Manasseh already took their possession on the east side of Jordan. So he's telling them now the 9.5 are going to take it in the main land of Israel. So he tells them to divide the land. So Joshua was to divide the land before they possessed it. They didn't possess it yet, but he's divided. This is going to be your portion, this is your portion, this is your portion. 9.5 tribes. And he tells them where they can go get their land. And so this tactic of dividing the land before they possess it is a confirmation of what's called the Abrahamic covenant, which is this land belongs to you. It's all yours. All right, you just haven't possessed it yet. Okay, and as a reminder of that, Genesis 15. If you want to turn there, I'll read a few verses. In Genesis 15, way back with Abraham, God and Abraham in the covenant, he gives him the land that he would possess. He tells him that it's his. So in Genesis 15:18, he says, it says, "In the same day the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, Unto thy seed have I given this land, from the river of Egypt." Okay, there's the river of Egypt. You know what the Nile River is? Look on a map, how far down it is from Israel. "From the river of Egypt unto the great river, the river Euphrates," which is way over east, way over Iraq, Iran, Fertile Crescent. Okay? That is an incredible amount of land that he's given them. And then he lists the Kenites and the Kenizzites and the Cadmonites and the Hittites and the Perizzites and the Rephaims and the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Girgashites and the Jebusites, many of which are possessing here in Joshua. And he says, you're going to go get all that land. So again, they were given all of it, like it's yours, the deed to it, but they had to go possess it. Unfortunately, when it's all said and done, they possessed what you see as Israel instead of the whole Middle East. Okay, so the Lord will give them the rest of that when he comes, when he returns. All right, so divide the land, he says, inheritance, because it's your land. Down to verse 13. It's not uncommon when you have a chapter 13 and a verse 13 for something negative to occur. And the law first mentioned is Genesis 13:13. 13 words in the verse. The first time the word sinners is used, reference to the men of Sodom were exceeding wicked sinners. Genesis 13:13, 13 words. Okay, first use of sinners. Not uncommon. So Joshua 13:13 is going to be something negative as well. It says, nevertheless, the children of Israel expelled not the Geshurites, nor the Maccathites. Geshurites, the Maccathites. But the Geshurites and the Maccathites dwell among the Israelites until this day. This is a huge problem, that they didn't expel them. They were to completely drive out the inhabitants of the land. Now, they were told this over and over again. Now, I'm going to read something from the book of Numbers, Numbers 33, when Moses was still in the picture. Numbers 33, verse 51 says, "Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, when you are passed over Jordan into the land of Canaan, then you shall drive out all the inhabitants of the land from before you, and destroy all their pictures, and destroy all their molten image, and quite pluck down all their high places." So again, they were supposed to go over there and obliterate these enemies and kill them all and take away their high places and their idols and all these things. Now, for the casual reader, we would look at that and go, man, it just seems so harsh. Wipe them all out, blah 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 blah. First of all, they were into Baal worship, Baal and Ashtaroth. If you know anything about that, they were pretty bad, wicked people. Okay. Archaeologists have uncovered many high places and temples, and many jars of children. They literally sacrificed their kids to Molech and to Baal. I mean, they would if we'll see later on. In the Valley of Hinnom, make their children pass through the fire. Okay, that wasn't a game that they were playing. Like, see if you can skip over the fire, son. They're killing their kids. If they set up a city, they would dedicate their firstborn and kill them and put them inside of the wall. It was supposed to bring, blessings or whatever. But when I say this was wicked, I'm not even scratching the surface of what these people were like over there in that land. Okay? So this is a big deal. Joshua 13:13. They didn't expel them from the land. Now, part of the problem is this. From the Geshurites came, remember this guy, Absalom? His mother was a Geshurite. Okay? And that's found, I'll read a couple of verses from 2 Samuel, chapter 3. 2 Samuel chapter 3, verse 3. These are David's sons born to him. And it says, in the second, Chileab of Abigail, the wife of Nabal, the Carmelite, and the third, Absalom, the son of Maacah, from what we just read in here, the Maacathites, and the daughter of Talmai, king of Geshur. See, the worst of both tribes that weren't expelled in Joshua 13:13, Absalom has the blood of both of those in him. And if you know anything about Absalom, he's a big type of Antichrist. One of the greatest types of Antichrist in the Bible is Absalom. And he usurped David's throne, he took it over, he killed David's sons. I mean, just a whole big mess. And so way back in Joshua, you have incomplete obedience that would cause apostasy in Judges and from then on, and cause King David great heartache. So, and that comes down to incomplete obedience. Incomplete obedience. Leaving things undone. Being, kind of a 50% Christian or whatever percent doesn't really set up your kids for success in their Christian walk. Okay? What we do in moderation, our kids do to the extreme. We always say, it's a little bit, that's not going to hurt you. Well, the kids see that, and they always do things to the extreme. So if you're kind of a very casual Christian, they're probably not going to be a Christian, or they're probably not going to do much at all with their faith, okay? It's the same kind of thing. When you leave things undone, and they didn't expel the Geshurites and the Maccathites, it came back to really hurt the nation, and specifically King David, causing him great heartache. Joshua 13, verse 14, it goes on to say, only unto the tribe of Levi he gave none inheritance. The sacrifices of the Lord God of Israel made by fire are their inheritance as he said unto them. So Levi is left out of the tribal inheritance. They ended up with, I think, some cities, like 48 cities, but no land to call their own as far as their tribe. Okay, because they kind of lived, they ministered to the people, and they lived off of the people, so to speak, but they would receive no inheritance. Now, the Levites were the priesthood. Now, if you think about that and spiritualize this for a moment, we are told that we're a royal priesthood. We're called the priesthood of the believer. What's the priesthood of the believer? Well, you have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. In your body, you are the temple of God. And now you're the priest, the priesthood. You have to kind of run that. And you run your relationship with the Lord. Okay? And if you think about that, the Levites getting no inheritance, our inheritance is not here. Now, and I love nice stuff. I love the seasonal life that we're in, and can do just about anything we want to do without restrictions, and I don't have those burdens anymore that we used to have and all that. That's nice, but that's not my inheritance. All right, it's not your inheritance. I know sometimes we treat things like they're our inheritance, but they're not. Our inheritance, our spiritual inheritance, are the things like the 5 crowns for Christians that we are eligible for in eternity, okay? The judgment seat of Christ, or the mansions, or whatever it be. So we are a priesthood without an inheritance on this side. Now we're blessed, and we get a lot of nice things, especially in America. Don't get me wrong, but those things are going to corrupt and rust, right, and all that. So, but the spiritual everlasting inheritance is not here, and the Levites did not get that. All right, in the land. They would receive none. All right, so it was a little bit different. All right, moving over to verse 22 of the text. And I just want to make mention of Balaam here, because it's noted, Balaam also the son of Beor, the soothsayer, did the children of Israel slay with the sword among them that were slain by them. So in these battles, they finally got rid of Balaam, who, if you remember, was a thorn in the sides of the children of Israel. He was a bad influence, in other words. And he's mentioned, I'm mentioning this because he's mentioned like 3 times in the New Testament, okay? So, 2 Peter chapter 2, and Jude, verse 11, and Revelation chapter 2. So, 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 15 says, which have forsaken the right way and are gone astray, following the way of Balaam, the son of Bezor, who loved the wages of unrighteousness, but was rebuked for his iniquity. The dumb ass, speaking with man's voice, forbade the madness of the prophet. That says a lot about this fellow Balaam. Iniquity, the madness of the prophet. He loved the wages of unrighteousness. And these are people that Peter's talking about, and he's comparing them in the New Testament. He's comparing them to this fella, Balaam. It doesn't have anything really good to say about him. So that's kind of a legacy that he has. And then from the book of Jude, in verse number 11, it says, woe unto them, for they have gone in the way of Cain and ran greedily after the error of Balaam for reward. The error of Balaam for reward. So there's another look at Balaam's character. In Revelation chapter 2, Jesus even mentions it here to one of the seven churches, the church of Pergamos. And he says, but I have a few things against thee, because thou hast there them that hold the doctrine of Balaam, who taught Balak to cast a stumbling block before the children of Israel, to eat things sacrificed unto idols, and to commit fornication. This Balaam was a bad dude way back here in the Old Testament. And so even in the church, the New Testament church of Pergamos, the Lord rebuking that church says, you hold the doctrine of Balaam, stumbling block, eating things sacrificed to idols, committing fornication. Really not a good legacy to have. So I wanted to stop and mention that, because back here in Joshua chapter 13, they slew him with the sword among them that were slain by them. Okay, so the rest of chapter 13 is divvied up here, some of the inheritance, and the end of the chapter, verse 32, these are the countries which Moses did distribute for inheritance in the plains of Moab, on the other side Jordan by Jericho eastward. But unto the tribe of Levi Moses gave not any inheritance. The Lord God of Israel was their inheritance, as he said unto them. Okay? The Lord God was their inheritance. All right. So try to remember that if and when, unfortunately, probably for a lot of you, when you're in an inheritance dispute with your family members. I don't know anything. Stop laughing. I don't know anything about this, but try to remember the Lord is your inheritance. The Lord is your inheritance. Okay? You try to remember that. And it makes things go so much smoother. So much smoother. Chapter 14. Chapter 14. Verse number 1 says, and these are the countries which the children of Israel inherited in the land of Canaan, which Eleazar the priest, Joshua the son of Nun, and the heads of the fathers of the tribes of the children of Israel distributed for inheritance to them. All right, that sets the context. Verse number 6. Verse number 6. Then the children of Judah came unto Joshua in Gilgal, and Caleb. Now we got to talk about Caleb. Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, said unto him, thou knowest the thing that the Lord said unto Moses, the man of God, concerning me and thee in Kadesh Barnea. Caleb comes over to his former partner, Joshua. Caleb was one of the two spies way back when Moses was alive. Joshua was the other spy. They're the two out of the 12 that had faith that God would deliver them the land. After 45 years or so, or whatever it is, or 65, it's Caleb saying, I'm here to collect. He's 85 years old now. I'm here to collect. Because when he and Joshua went in the land, they said, we can whip these giants. We got no problem with this. We got the land. We can take it. And the other 10 moaned and groaned, and they wanted to stone Joshua and Caleb. And that's when the Lord said, none of you are going in except Joshua and Caleb. And they made them wander for 40 years in the wilderness. Well, Caleb is ready to collect. And he says, remember, he says, 40 years old was I when Moses, there's the answer. So 45 years ago. 40 years old was I When Moses, the servant of the Lord, sent me from Kadesh Barnea to spy out the land, I brought him word again, as it was in mine heart. Nevertheless, my brethren that went up with me made the heart of the people melt. But I wholly followed the Lord my God. And Moses sware on that day, saying, Surely the land whereon thy feet have trodden shall be thine inheritance, and thy children's forever, because thou hast wholly followed the Lord my God. And now behold, the Lord hath kept me alive, as he said, these 45 years, even since the Lord spake this word unto Moses, while the children of Israel wandered in the wilderness. And now, lo, I am this day 85 years old. I'm 85 years old, and I'm here to collect. As yet I am as strong this day as I was in the day that Moses sent me. As my strength was then, even so is my strength now, for war, both to go out and to come in. So he says, look at, I'm as strong as I was. When he says to go out and come in from battle, sometimes going out to battle is different than coming back in from battle, and you'll know that spiritually as well. Going out to battle spiritually is exhausting, and when you come back in, I need a break. Okay? So physically, same thing. When I go out to battle, I come in a little bit tired. He's saying, not so. My strength is like when I go out to battle and I come into battle, I feel the same. I feel good. I feel real good about it. And he felt as strong as he had under Moses. Basically, probably the motivation. Caleb lived for this day. Waiting all those years to collect this inheritance. He probably was motivated by that, just lived for this day. And he believed the Lord. And he probably stayed in shape on purpose and all those things. Verse number 12. Now therefore give me this mountain, where the Lord spake in that day. For thou heardest in that day how the Anakims were there, and that the cities were great and fenced. If so be the Lord will be with me, then I shall be able to drive them out, as the Lord said. He's got great faith here. Now this is a great lesson for us spiritually. We need some Calebs, okay? He wants the mountain, he wants the toughest mountain with the biggest giants. That's what he wants. I want this mountain, and I want a piece of those giants. Whoa. Imagine, I'm sure all of you known an older man who was strong as an ox. I can think of some even now. They're unique. They're different. They're different. It's like, wow, these guys are strong. They're incredible. They're driving. In their 80s or 90, and it's like, whoa, their work ethic. And this would have been one of those guys, even more so in Caleb. So he's ready to go. And I was thinking about this. Most Christians, give me that mountain. Most Christians want the mountain, but they don't want to fight the giants. And there's the difference again between going and possessing the land, right? You got to fight the giants. You want to do great things for the Lord? Oh, listen, the devil just doesn't sit back and say, let me make this path so nice and easy for you. Go right ahead and do great things for the Lord. Absolutely. Won't be a problem here. There's going to be no interference whatsoever. That's just not how it goes. When you want to do great things for the Lord and you're in spiritual battle, there's going to be giants to fight. That's just the way it is. And literally, Caleb was like, I'm ready to fight these giants. So give me this mountain. Verse 13, and Joshua blessed him and gave unto Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, Hebron for an inheritance. You can have it. Hebron therefore became the inheritance of Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, unto this day, because that he wholly followed the Lord God of Israel. Now, there's something for us to keep in mind. What caused this man to get the blessings? He wholly, in whole, not partially, not halfway, but fully, wholly followed the Lord. Was all in with everything that he went after. I'm wholly following the Lord. And he said, all I know is God said I'd have the land. God said I'd beat the giant. I'm just going to go fight. Because God said, he wholly followed the Lord. God ever give you promises? You say, Lord, what is it with these? I thought you gave me these promises. How come? Well, sometimes you got to fight the giants to get the promises. Okay? So, he gives them a place, which, by the way, Hebron here was the very place where the spies 45 years prior encountered the giants, and where they cut down those huge clusters of grapes and had to carry those grapes on the staff. They had to carry them like this because they were so large, so the land was so fruitful. The same place that he gets now. He's like, give me this mountain. I want this mountain. That's where I first saw the giants. And he gave him the mountain where he could go enjoy those grapes. And I gotta believe that at some point he probably went up to those clusters of grapes that he hadn't seen in 45 years and said, this is so fulfilling and delicious. I gotta believe something like that happened with him. And he was looking forward to that. And he whipped every giant that came his way. So in verse 15 it says, for the name of Hebron before Caleb got there was Kirjath Arba, which Arba was a great man among the Anakims, the giants, the Anakims, and the land had rest from war. So he whipped them all, and he dethroned this great man, Arba, and they renamed the city at some point Hebron. Okay? So the famous giant was out. Okay? And the land, here's another lesson. The land had rest from war. Okay? At some point, God gives you respite. I mean, he gives you a break. Sometimes you go in and fight some giants, and you give them a whooping, and you claim what God has given you, and you wholly follow after the Lord, and he gives you a Sabbath, gives you a break, gives us blessing. He gives us the grapes of Eshcol. Okay, he lets us partake in things like that. He lets us have the blessing, and now you get to enjoy. We get to enjoy life. We really do. So. But that's Caleb. Boy, Caleb was a unique guy and a great testimony and example. All right, on to chapter 15. Verse number 1. It says, This then was the lot of the tribe of the children of Judah by their families. Even to the border of Edom, the wilderness was in southward, was uttermost part of the south coast. So he's going to get into where all of that was. Down to verse 8. And the border went up by the valley of the son of Hinnom, unto the south side of the Jebusite, the same as Jerusalem. And the border went up to the top of the mountain that lieth before the valley of Hinnom westward, which is at the end of the valley of the giants northward. So giants, again, are connected with Hinnom. Here's the significance of the valley of Hinnom. This is where a lot of wicked, as I mentioned before, wickedness happened in sacrifice. The New Testament, Valley of Hinnom, in the New Testament is called, in the Greek word is called, and you've probably heard this word, Gehenna. Gehenna is one of the words translated for hell, okay, in the English. Gehenna, hell, Hades, hell. There's several words like that, okay? So, this valley of Hinnom was a very bad place, connected to witchcraft and burning children in fire. Okay? So I'm just going to give some description of it from Chronicles and then Jeremiah. I'm going to go 2 Chronicles first. 2 Chronicles. And there's a lot. If you were to cross-reference Hinnom, you would have a lot, and it's all negative. Okay? 2 Chronicles chapter 28. Second Chronicles chapter 28, verse 3. This is under King Ahaz. Moreover, he burnt incense in the valley of the son of Hinnom, and burnt his children. Ahaz, the king, burnt his children in the fire, after the abominations of the heathen, whom the Lord had cast out before the children of Israel. All right, 2 Chronicles now 33. 2 Chronicles 33, verse 6 says, this is now Manasseh, one of the worst kings, Manasseh. And he caused his children to pass through the fire in the valley of the son of Hinnom. Also, he observed, now listen to this list. This is not a good list. Also, he observed times, horoscopes, all that stuff. He observed times and used enchantments and used witchcraft and dealt with a familiar spirit and with wizards. He wrought much evil in the sight of the Lord to provoke him to anger. That's quite a list of the valley of Hinnom. So I say that now, I don't care. People get mad at me, it doesn't matter to me. Okay? I don't care what you think of this. Never, ever would I ever point my children to stories about wizards and witchcraft when that stuff says that about it. Never. Crazy if you do that. You're crazy. And that's so forbidden in Scripture. Witchcraft, familiar spirits, wizards, never favorable. Never. I don't care how cute you make it. Jeremiah chapter 7. Jeremiah chapter 7, verse 31. God condemning what the people had done in the city of Jerusalem. And he says, they have built the high places of Tophet, which is in the valley of the son of Hinnom, to burn their sons and their daughters in the fire, which I commanded them not. Neither came it into my heart. God says, there's nothing even close about this to my worship. Therefore, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that it shall no more be called Tophet, nor the valley of the son of Hinnom, but the valley of slaughter. For they shall bury Tophet till there be no place. Now, it is speculated. I don't know that I really could prove this, nor have I really taken a lot of time to look into it. Some people think that the final resting place, now hell is in the center of the earth. Then the death and hell are cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death. The lake of fire, some would say, is going to be outside of Jerusalem in the valley of Hinnom or Gehenna. I don't know that to be the case, but I understand there's an argument for that. We shall see. But he's going to do something with it there, he says. He's angry about this. It's not going to be called that anymore. Jeremiah 32, 35 says, again, the Lord similar. And they built the high places of Baal, which are in the valley of the son of Hinnom, to cause their sons and their daughters to pass through the fire unto Molech, which I commanded them not. Neither came it into my mind that they should do this abomination to cause Judah to sin. All of that because they didn't drive out all the enemies. And so it hung around there in Jerusalem, in Israel. All right, Joshua 15, again. Continuing on with Caleb and his family, Joshua 15:16 says, and Caleb said, he that smiteth Kirjath-sepher and taketh it, him will I give Asa, my daughter, to wife. Asa, my daughter. Oh, come here, Asa. Sounds weird. And Othniel, the son of Kenaz, the brother of Caleb, took it. And he gave him Agag, his daughter, to wife. So this guy says, I'll take it. And Othniel married Caleb's daughter, and Othniel would be the first judge of Israel. Okay, he becomes the first judge in the book of Judges. Okay, and this is the guy that was basically married into Caleb's family. So no doubt he was going to be somebody mighty. And Judges 3:9 says, and when the children of Israel cried unto the Lord raised up a deliverer to the children of Israel, who delivered them, even Othniel, the son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother. All right, so that's the history there. All right, now, chapter 15, to the end, no, not to the end, close to it. Verse 47, just another tidbit here. Verse 47, the Gaza Strip. Ashdod with her towns and her villages, Gaza with her towns and her villages under the river of Egypt and the great sea and the border thereof. You got verse 46, Akron, then you have Ashdod, and then you have Gaza, all mentioned there. These are all mentioned in 1 Samuel 6, and the story of 1 Samuel 6 is the Philistines captured the Ark of the Covenant. If you remember, they stole the Ark of the Covenant. And these cities are mentioned by name. And the Gaza Strip is named after this territory. But it still belongs to Israel, as he told them to go possess it. It still belongs to Israel. But they never drove out the inhabitants. And they have still to this day had constant trouble with these people from the Gaza Strip. Okay? It's also, just to be noted in Judges, it is also the place where Samson went in unto the harlot, was also there in Gaza. So not good things didn't happen. All right. That's all I have in 15. End of 15, as for the Jebusites, the inhabitants of Jerusalem, the children of Judah could not drive them out, but the Jebusites dwell with the children of Judah at Jerusalem unto this day. All right, we'll talk a little bit here in chapter 16 about Joseph's children, his tribes. Chapter 16, verse 1, and the lot of the children of Joseph fell from Jordan by Jericho unto the water of Jericho on the east to the wilderness that goeth up from Jericho throughout Mount Bethel. So Joseph had two children, Manasseh and Ephraim. And Manasseh and Ephraim, basically Joseph was going to get a double portion. There's no tribe of Joseph. Joseph was getting a double portion of the tribe because the Lord blessed him and he was obedient, and Joseph was a great man and a type of Christ in 150 ways or more. And Joseph had these guys, Manasseh and Ephraim, and they ended up getting 2. So that would have made 13 tribes, but the Levites didn't get a tribe, so it goes back to 12. Okay, so that's how that works. But he gets the double portion of Manasseh and Ephraim. Okay, so verse number 4, it says, so the children of Joseph, Manasseh and Ephraim, took their inheritance. Now, if you remember, half of the tribe of Manasseh, Reuben, Gad, half of Manasseh, took their inheritance on the east side. So the half of the tribe over on this side took their inheritance and would divide their territory with Ephraim. They got a territory, Ephraim, and the other half of Manasseh. You divide this territory. All right, so that's what would happen. But Ephraim later would basically absorb it all, and it would be known as Ephraim only, fulfilling the blessings in Genesis chapter 48. Let me just go back there. Genesis 48, when all of the sons of Jacob were being blessed in the next generation and all that. This is Genesis chapter 48. And we won't read it all. But this is Jacob talking to Joseph about his sons. And it's Manasseh and Ephraim at the bedside of Jacob. And he puts his hands, put his right hand on the head of Ephraim, the younger, and it should have been the other way around. All right, the right hand should have gone to Manasseh and the left hand to Ephraim. But verse 17, it says, and when Joseph saw that his father had laid his right hand upon the head of Ephraim, it displeased him. And he held up his father's hand to remove it from Ephraim's head unto Manasseh's head. And Joseph said unto his father, not so, my father, for this is the firstborn. Put thy right hand upon his head. And his father refused and said, I know it, my son, I know it. He also shall become a people, and he also shall be great. But truly his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his seed shall become a multitude of nations. And he blessed them that day, saying, in thee shall Israel bless, saying, God make thee as Ephraim and as Manasseh. And he set Ephraim before Manasseh. So all these years later, they get this land where Ephraim and Manasseh divided it, but later it would just be commonly called Ephraim, because Ephraim would be greater. In fact, in the prophets, in a lot of the prophets, there was the 10 northern tribes of Israel and the 2 southern tribes of Judah. And a lot of the prophets, though, they would call the 10 northern tribes Ephraim. And that was the blessing, the inheritance of Joseph and his younger son being greater than his older son. Okay? All right. Let's wrap this up. Verse 10. And then it just says, and they get their inheritance in verse 10. And they drave not out the Canaanites that dwelt in Gezer, but the Canaanites dwell among the Ephraimites unto this day and serve under tribute. So here's what the Ephraimites did. Tempting, I would imagine. They said, you know what? Instead of driving these tribes out, let's just let them serve under tribute. They'll be our servants. And so that's what they did. Because if they were powerful enough to make the Canaanites serve under tribute, they were certainly powerful enough to drive them out, which they were supposed to do. And that would be another awful mistake, and kind of selfish, honestly. Selfish was, God says drive them out. They were like, you know what? Let's just let them stay here and just serve under tribute. Okay? And I think sometimes we could get caught up in that, and I don't know. We're supposed to drive out sin in our life, drive out this or that, the other thing, and try to be the best Christian we can be. And then sometimes we go, no, let's just keep this around. Let's just keep that around. It's okay. They'll serve under tribute. We'll be in control. Okay. And sometimes that comes back to bite people, all right? Because if there's something in your life that you really shouldn't have in your life, but you feel like, well, I've got control over it. I mean, moderation, right? I can handle it. That stuff will come back at some point, whether it's you or somebody around you that you have bad influence on, or your children. That stuff will come back and haunt us. So it's just better to listen to what God says and just, drive them out fully. And they didn't, and that caused a lot of issue. So there's a lot of spiritual lessons to be learned from this possessing the land. Where we're not really supposed to cohabitate with the heathen. You know what I mean? We have to exist around them. We have to work with them. We have to do this. We could witness to them, all that. But if your life is kind of immersed in, kind of, yoked up with like lost people, the heathen, and more so than more influence on you than you on them, and that's just never good. not supposed to be that way. In the world, not of the world. Be not unequally yoked, right? And all those things that we go, oh, yeah. So there's just some lessons to be learned, I think, from the tribes here and their failure to completely drive out the inhabitants. All right, it's 8:16, it's 8:17, and that's what I've got on the survey of those chapters. So we get to January, we'll see how it goes. I haven't not yet studied the upcoming chapters. When we get there, I'll survey when I need to survey, teach the whole chapter when I need to teach the whole chapter, and we'll just take it a little bit at a time, okay?